Well, good day, everybody. We're probably going to catch a few people by surprise. I'm 3 hours early on the live, but there's going to be a few little changes to the system maybe going forward next week. We're traveling next week on the way to New Zealand. A few of us are on the way, and anyway, we'll keep an eye on that and see what happens. But for now, what's the news today? Explorer's underway. Stern is still on the hard or just launched and not ready to leave right now. So they will be hopefully away tomorrow, but I haven't heard officially yet. I know Jarrett was explaining once they launch, there's nowhere to hang out there. And they thought today might be taken up with paperwork and a few other issues. So hopefully they'll get away by tomorrow. And there's a bit of weather out there. You may have seen the post we put up just to explain once again, for those that don't follow this tracker, how we determine whether a weather alert is relevant or not. We use a 35-knot forecast wind as a trigger to issue the alert, and there's some pretty big winds, 30 knots, 34, whatever. You need to have a look at it and you'll see, but gusting through to 40, 45, 4-meter seas are forecast, which is relatively low actually. I would have thought with that wind strength it may have been a bit more, but you may remember I mentioned to people that an average good day in the Southern Ocean is sort of 35 knots of breeze and sort of 3 to 4 meter seas. So they're going to be getting 30 knots gusting 40, 45 with a 4 meter sea, which I'll explain in a minute. But it didn't warrant a weather alert, so no one in the fleet got one, which is pretty straightforward. Anyways, let's go straight to the tracker, and we'll explain what's going on. First thing that hit me, just to give you a bit of my background, I'm from Adelaide, which is right here in South Australia. This is all our sort of home waters, cruising up around here. And I spent nearly 20 years of my life going back and forwards down here to Antarctica, right down into the Ross Sea, on everything which is right down here as far as you can go, on yachts and ships and all sorts of stuff. We even had our own little ship. I had a 36-meter ship with a helicopter and all the dive gear, and we did a few trips down here, down to Commonwealth Bay, sailing down in yachts and ships. So about 3.5 years of my life has been spent on the ocean here, and looking at ice situations, looking at weather. Weather's the big deal here. Sometimes we'd make 3 trips a season down into Antarctica and back again. And the thing that hits me, I'm just saying how the weather, and I'm not a weather expert, I'm not a meteorologist, but we've got observations and we understand what's going on. And normally what happens is, if you can imagine this, the weather is generated from a huge high that sits over the top of Antarctica, and then the air comes down the coast of Antarctica. It gets to the coastline here, and then just off the coast in this area here, this is where the low pressure systems are formed. Okay, and the low pressure systems go around in a clockwise direction, and you usually see them all stacked up here. There might be 3 or 4 or 5 or so along the coast here, and they're small and intense. And then slowly but surely, they actually make their way in a sort of a northeasterly direction up here into the Southern Ocean. And when they get there, they move a little bit more to the west and then go up here and blow apart. But and the other thing to remember, I've sailed down here plenty of time on yachts, okay? And when you come down, you make a voyage plan. So as you're coming down, you're expecting the westerlies. So you try and keep a bit in the bank on your course. You come down in the westerlies, you get blown away a bit, and you might be the opposite side this way because of the westerlies if your objective is Commonwealth Bay here. But as soon as you get to 60 degrees south, this is the 60 degrees south latitude, the wind predominantly changes direction, and you actually get an easterly, because you're on the bottom side of these low pressure systems. And the first thing that hits me now when I look at this weather, which has been pretty benign, and the fleet's getting a fantastic ride with high average speeds and good bits and pieces, is that there's just no easterlies down here, and there's not a lot of little O's being formed that are going to suck up into the Southern Ocean. So, it's a little bit, I won't call it strange. I mean, here's a little low pressure system here, and there's some distortions that look like lows. There's one up here, okay, and that's the one that's affecting the fleet now, this little low pressure system, but it's just not like it normally is, right? And that's pretty cool for the fleet. So I just thought I look at it and think, wow, everything's pretty straightforward. I mean, yes, there's some color here and bits of wind, but I think so far so good, touch wood. Everyone's been able to make some really good high average speeds. Yes, they've got Southern Ocean conditions, but it's not extreme at the moment, and I'm very happy about that. The other interesting thing is Penjuic and Marie. They're pretty much halfway now. If we go right back, you can see there's Cape Town, there's Auckland here. This is pretty much the halfway point for that. So that's 50. What do we got? 20, 30, 40. Yeah, so pretty much halfway. And that will show up on her box, I suppose, which says, 3,500 miles to go, distance to the finish. So Marie's the first one to get halfway. That's kind of cool. Anyway, enough of that. We'll just pull this back and we'll go to the back end of the fleet and have a look at what Explorer's up to. They took off in a bit of breeze, but then they actually took a bit of cover as well. So here they are here. You can see there's Sterner still in port. Hopefully they'll get away tomorrow because the clock is ticking to get to Auckland in time. So Explorer came round. They had some good breezes last night, filled in a bit, and then they decided to keep in the shelter of the land to get away from some of it and maybe to buddy up with Sterner, but Sterner's not ready. And then they ran out of breeze. This oscillated. This breeze here has gone in and out, but now they're back in the breeze. So that's a good thing. They're doing 8.3 knots and only did 129 miles in the last 24 hours, but that's okay. They're coming 12th in line on us, 12th in IRC, and 4th in Sailor class. That's encouraging. So, what are they likely to get in the next little while here? Well, that's probably I'll go up. Went a bit small there. Okay, I'll just click this along and you'll see it starts to drop back very quickly. They need to get down south to hold into this and then try and run down that band. They know they've got to get south to stay with the breeze. So, and then this will be over pretty quickly. Within a day, the whole thing just fizzes out and they've just got nice westerlies, but then it's going to go quiet. This is on the 22nd, so that's tomorrow. And then it's going to go pretty quiet. So by then they need to be down here. They might park with this lot for a short period of time. I had hoped they'd hold with those stronger winds and keep going. They might have been down here and made the most of it. It probably cost them another day or so. But generally, it's not too bad coming up. So that's the 24th, 3 days from now. Hopefully they'll be down here somewhere kicking along. Anyway, that's it, and hopefully we'll see Sterner join the pack very soon. So now we come back here. It'd be good if you haven't seen it, have a look at the video explaining the weather that the fleet is getting now and why they didn't get a weather alert. It was actually translated 9. Was obviously watching their barometer and building northwesterly wind. They might have got a weather forecast as well, and they know this front is coming. So the wind, you'll see it goes from northwest and it goes quiet for a little bit. There's only probably 10 to 15 knots in here. And then it hits with a bang. When you get the front come through on that edge there, you can get a peak for like 15, 20 minutes. Where if this is going to be sort of 30 knots here, you might get 40 on the sudden change for 10, 15 minutes. And then it'll back and it'll sit on 30 for some time. But there's nothing in these winds here for a forecast, which is over 32 knots. There was only a few little patches where it was 32 knots. Most of it was about 30 knots or less. But it's gusting 45, and that's normal for all the usual reasons. And we use the trigger of 35-knot forecast wind to give the weather alert. I'm sure all of them understand now entirely that when they've got the northwesterly, it's just a matter of time before it swings to the southwest. So they will be aware of that and ready to respond. In reality, if we talk about Galliana here now, they had the front go over them about 4 or 5 hours ago, and they completely were not ready for it. They had the strong northwesterly, and then it went really quiet down to 10, 15 knots. So being Galliana, they hoisted spinnakers, and they had their oldest spinnaker in their wardrobe. And then all of a sudden it went from 10 to 15 knots up to about 25 to 30, and they got into all sorts of strife. And They basically blew up that kite. It's in pieces in the back of the boat, drying out now to see if they can salvage it with their sewing machine. They've got 2 sailmakers on board, and they'll try and patch it up again. So right now, Galeana's doing 10 knots, and they'd have that, 30-knot sou'wester there pushing them along. Temperature had dropped back to about 8 degrees, and they had a bit of drizzle on the northwesterly front. You can hear all of this in Galeana's SoundCloud. I think Jane's got it up already, so you can listen to the discussion. And so they're right in the thick of it. So starting at the back end of the fleet, White Shadow, nowhere near the front. It's all very gentle and benign up there. They're a bit further away from it now. 7.5 knots, 167-mile day. They'll be happy with that. And they're probably in 25 to 30 knot winds and about 3 to 4 meter seas. So enjoying the ride. Same with Neptune, 9.8 knots. They've just come out of some stronger southwesterly winds. This stuff has gone over them, and now that it's backing off, so the sea would have been 4 meters, dying down now, slowly but surely over the next 12, 18 hours. So having a good ride. 9.8, there's nothing wrong with that. 216-mile day. It's quite cool and dead straight as a button. That's what we like to see. Excuse me. Evrika doing 9 knots, 180-mile day, in the thick of it, similar to all of these boats. They've got here Galeana, Outlaw, side by side with Tapio, 9.8 knots, 198-mile day. So Galeana did 196-mile day, so they're level pegging, completely level pegging. Triana, I spoke to Triana a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. The signal wasn't so good. In fact, Tapio was the same. He's totally unimpressed with the iridium foam, but it might be his antenna. Excuse me. So all seems well on Triana. Their generator's not working, but their engine is, and they're doing fine. They're sending all their videos and photos back and so on. So quite happy and really enjoying it. 3 of the crew members had birthdays in the last week. So I said, who cooked the cake? And someone did. So they had quite a few parties on board. I'm not sure how rowdy they were, but 3 crew having a birthday in 1 week was pretty special for them. 193-mile day and 8.6, so not as fast as the others, but doing okay. Someone, who was it? It was Translated 9 just sent back a really nice video showing sailing in solid conditions as it's getting dark. So we'll see that later on. Okay. Well, the Speed of Keep, 7.6 knots, not as fast as they could be going in this breeze. They got plenty of breeze there, so they've obviously backed off. The front's only just gone over. It'd be dark. It's been dark for some time there now, so they've backed off a little bit for whatever reason, but they got a big daily run, 224-mile day. So that's pretty okay. The tricky one there is they've taken this front in the dark. The timing, Galeana would have probably got it in the daylight, but I think it would have come through quicker on. No, it's going the other way. No, after. So they've got it in the dark as well. So I'm getting confused there. The wind's going this way, but the front's going that way, but the sun's going the other way. Anyway, I'm confusing myself. So quite cool. Spirit of Helsinki, 9.9 knots, 230-mile day. Pulled a little bit away from the Spirit of Keep, and bigger boat, more powerful boat, maybe having fun. Maiden. So they're doing 9.4, 225-mile day. They're just on the husp of this, although the weather there might be back a bit. So we get 4, it's about right. So this is real time, an hour and a bit ago. This is 2 hours ago. No, 1 hour ago. This is 1 hour ago. This was their situation. So they're on the northwesterly. It's about to drop off for about an hour or so as this moves over the top, and then they'll get the bang from the southwest. So they're taking it in the dark as well, which is always a little bit more challenging. It's nice to do it in the daytime when you can see what's going on. So Translated 9, 10.9 knots, 231-mile day, still stretching out from their immediate boats, Spirit of Helsinki. They're taking ground on that. And Penduic, 11.3, 271-mile day, just flying. And that's pretty impressive. So now, first in line on us still, second in IRC and second in flyer class. So still hasn't quite cracked the IRC big numbers, but translated 9, still holding on to it. First in IRC, first in flyer class, and second in line honours. So they're still holding true there, and Maiden still the same, big 3. Third line honours, third IRC, third in flyer class. So holding their own. It's would we call this hard work? It was interesting because in some ways it's nowhere near as hard as the first leg going down the Atlantic, because it's all you've got a lot more consistent breeze, and it's like, just like charging ahead. Just keep the boat going, steer straight, try and work out where you are if you can, but just watch out for squalls. So as much as it's cold, wet, woolly, big seas, all that sort of stuff, in some ways it's actually a bit easier on the crew than the tactical side of going down the Atlantic and changing sails more often, and all sorts of things. So I think this is would it be tougher? It's just different, just different. But they'll all be still enjoying. I know they are all enjoying it. They're really getting an amazing Southern Ocean experience without having too many big storms. Touch wood. So long may that last. So we'll scale back and look at the weather, over how quickly this is going to move over the top of them. It's going to move pretty quick, so we can watch it all the way along. Penjuic up there, every one of these is about 3 hours, every one of these clicks. So this is now coming into tomorrow. This is tomorrow midday, and it's all green. So that's very pleasant sailing. Once it goes green, as you know, that's 20s, 20, 25 knots, seas rolling back, and this is now, I'll bring it up to 24 hours ahead. So there's 24 hours. So in 24 hours, it's completely different, and you can see what's going to happen. First of all, white shadow in the next 24 hours is probably going to be I'll just peg that out. They're probably going to do 180 miles, maybe 200. So say if they're there, imagine white shadow there. And same for Neptune. Neptune's going to be about here. Marie's going to be about here somewhere. So you can imagine that's in 24 hours. So with this weather condition, they're all going to be about that much in front. And then we'll see what happens to white shadow. Yeah, they're going to park for a bit. Neptune's going to be okay. They're going to be coming down here. They'll be under it. Evrika is going to be up here. They're going to go light unless they dip down. And I think these guys here are going to be fine. They're going to be on this mild southwesterly. Spirit of Helsinki is going to be up here. Marie is going to have a few little tactical things. This is where their ETA is going to start to now come into play. It's going to, at the moment, the ETAs are crazy because they've been averaging huge speeds. And in fact, let's just go straight to the leaderboard to discuss this. So if we go line honours from the start with Penjuic, she's averaged 9.5 knots for the last, the last 16 days, which is pretty impressive because an average, of course, is every hour of the day all the way. So 9.5 is pretty impressive indeed. And that's giving them an ETA, if they could maintain that for the next few weeks, as the 7th of December. Which is 7th of December would be outrageous. They've still got to go through the tactical side of the Tasman Sea and still get along underneath Australia. So I'm still thinking it's not going to be any earlier than the 12th, but hopefully a little bit later. But we'll see. It's certainly they're covering a huge amount of ground, and that looks as if they might be early. Translated showing the 9th, Maiden showing the 11th, Spirit of Helsinki showing the 12th. I think it's fair to say you could probably add at least 3 days, maybe even 3 or 4 days onto those times there, if they continue with the good sort of average speeds and so on for ETAs. So now IRC, we'll see if much has changed there. 38.14. Okay, so Penjuic's only 3 hours behind. 3 hours or 4 hours. No, 3 hours. Near enough to 3 hours behind translated on IRC. So I think she's gained a bit of ground. I think it was about it was higher than that. I think it was 7 or 8 hours before. So Penjuic's edging forward again, and we'll have to wait and see. Then after that, for Maiden, it's around about, it's in fact exactly 8, 9, 10, 11, 3 days later. So the real fun on IRC there is Penjuic versus translated. They're really having a tussle. Then it goes down to Triana, Galliana with Secure, and so on. So as you can see there, I don't want to go through every one, but Explorer now is back in the hunt. So what's she got? Going to arrive in 477 days on the corrected time. So 13th of January is Explorer's ETA. Actually, I worked out today that it's probably going to be about won't be any earlier than the 7th. And I reckon if where they were going, I thought it cost them a couple of days, could be the 8th or 9th. Anyway, we'll have to wait and see. So I think that's about it. I'm not sure how many people will be here with this new time. Let's have a look here and I'll see what's going on. Oh, yeah, we got a few people there. So that's it. G'day, Kathleen, Christine, Tara. Yeah, early tonight, got a few things on. Explorer managed to keep all their sales that first night. Yeah, that's a plus, I tell you. Anyway, they're actually using a more or less a Yankee up on the bow. We don't have a Genoa, it's a Yankee, but it works well with the stay sail, especially in a bit of breeze. Silly question from Peter, but do these sailors have thermal waterproof clothing on board? Yeah, absolutely, heaps of it. And in fact, yeah, they've got a couple of sets. They use thermal underwear, then they'll have a fiber pile middle layer, like another layer, and then they'll have where the gear, usually their salopettes, so their pants that come right up to here, and then they have their jackets over the top. Some of them have got dry suits, they've got rubber seals around their neck and wrists and so on to stay completely dry. So yeah, clothing, especially hands and feet and hats and things like that, is very important when you're down there, because all these boats are steered by humans. They're not allowed to use autopilots or anything like that. So it's people sitting out there driving the boats all the way. Martin, hi. Penduic stretching their lead, but how far ahead do you estimate they will need to be to lead IRC when they get into Auckland? Oh, well, it depends. It's a factor of not only distance, but it's time and speed. Depends on how far back the other guys are. But a couple of days, if Penduic can be a couple of days, 2 or 3 days ahead of translated, she could hold on to that. And only time will tell. There's lots of, when you turn Cape Reinga at the top of New Zealand, you turn that corner and go down, all hell breaks loose. You can be becalmed and someone can sail around you and all that. There's quite a few tactical challenges yet to manage that, and certainly getting good weather forecasts for the Tasman Sea will be critical. You got to know what's happening to the weather in the Tasman. Otherwise, you can make some tactical mistakes just getting up the top of New Zealand, let alone down the last bit. So that'll be fun to watch when we get close. Okay, so that's it. We'll thanks for that, and we'll see you tomorrow, probably the same time, 9 o'clock tomorrow. So we'll see you soon.